Wearing books heavy +sign space heavy +sign group pet heavy +sign smash abuse heavy +sign face slapping. After waking up from sleep, Zhizhi unexpectedly slipped into a novel she had read before bedtime and dressed up as a canon fodder supporting actress who appeared for less than 5 minutes. And the original owner actually had a handsome and despicable husband named Gu Huaishen, as well as 3 older brothers who doted on her. Not only that, she also unlocked the golden finger space and possessed a rare and precious medicinal field. As a skilled traditional Chinese medicine practitioner who has saved countless lives, Zhizhi said. The profession is right. Unexpectedly, the top-notch relatives in the book repeatedly provoke. The original female lead even designed to frame her and her family. I can't bear it. I can't bear it. Zhizhi rolled up his sleeves, relying on his superb medical skills to save and treat others, while abusing his scum and kicking him in the face. In the end, Gu Huai, who had red eyes, forced him to the corner of the wall and asked with grievances, "Is it okay not to divorce?" Chapter 1. Wearing a cannon fodder female supporting character that even dogs dislike. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Sister, wake up quickly. Zhizhi frowned as he listened to the sound in his ear. She just stayed up late yesterday to finish writing a paper, took a day off from school, and was about to sleep in the dark when she was awakened by whispers in her ear. After opening his eyes in dissatisfaction, he saw a very unfamiliar room. The seats and decorations inside were very old and rudimentary, the walls were dusty, and the roof was covered with several beams and tiles. This is not her apartment. Zhizhi woke up instantly when she was scared. Where is she? Has she been kidnapped? Sister. You finally woke up. The boy standing by the bed saw Zhizhi open his eyes and exclaimed in surprise, "How do you feel? Are you feeling any discomfort?" Zhizhi stared in surprise at the unfamiliar boy who suddenly appeared in front of him. The boy looked about 13 or 14 years old, wearing a slightly yellowed vest, with slightly thin limbs and obvious malnutrition. His dark face was filled with concern. Zhizhi quickly searched for his memories in his mind, but found nothing. Who is he? Why call her sister? Zhizhi is very certain that he doesn't have a lost younger brother. The boy saw that Zhizhi didn't answer and immediately nervously said, "Sister, are you still feeling unwell? Wait, I'll go find my older brother and tell them you're finally awake." Before she could react, she spread her legs and ran out. Zhizhi looked at the empty room, which gave him time to carefully examine the surroundings. An old wooden table with a missing water cup and a plastic-edged mirror on top. There is a big red kettle and a wash basin piled up on the cement floor, which is very dated. There is also a large calendar hanging on the paint-peeling wall, with the words 1974 prominently printed on it. In 1974. Zhizhi stared at the calendar incredulously for 2 seconds, then sat up with a jerk. Hiss. A burst of pain hit, and Zhizhi only then noticed that there were many abrasions on his body. She lowered her head to look at the big red quilt covering her body and the old-fashioned clothes she was wearing, and a wild guess came to her mind. She won't be able to travel through time, will she? No way, Zhizhi murmured to himself. Suddenly, there was a throbbing pain in her brain, as if an awl was forcefully piercing her forehead. Memories that did not belong to her were playing like movies. Zhizhi hugged her head in pain, and a cold sweat broke out on her forehead. She tightly bit her white lips, accepting these memories. After about 10 minutes, the pain slowly dissipated, and Zhizhi slowly exhaled and lay down, ready to cry without tears. Okay, it's confirmed. She's wearing a book now. She finally finished her graduate studies and is about to graduate. She is about to escape the hardships of school. How could she suddenly cross the river? She also dressed as a cannon fodder supporting actress from a rebirth novel she read before bedtime. Coincidentally, the cannon fodder female supporting character in the novel has the same name as Zhizhi, so she spent a few days reading the novel. The background of the novel is a rural area in the 1970s. The female protagonist Lin Min comes from a poor family, and her parents prioritize sons over daughters. Lin Min has been abused since childhood, and all the dirty and tiring work is done by the female protagonist. In her past life, Lin Min was conspired by her family to join forces and sell to an old man who was remarried. In the end, she was tormented and passed away unwillingly. Then, starting from rebirth, they seek revenge against their parents and brothers, and embark on a cliché plot of reaching the pinnacle of their lives with the male lead. In the book, Zhizhi was born in Taohua village and has 3 older brothers and 1 younger brother. That boy just now should be the younger brother of the original owner, Lu Zhou. The original owner's father unfortunately passed away in an accident while working in a factory in his early years. His mother was already in poor health, and after losing her husband, she was unhappy all day long, tears streaming down her face. She passed away when Lu Zhizhi was 5 years old. Lu Zhizhi was raised by 3 older brothers from a young age. The Lu family did not prioritize boys over girls in that era, but instead favored the only girl in the family, which led to Lu Zhizhi's increasingly stubborn and indulgent personality. It is widely known that the daughter of the Lu family is lazy, vain, and infamous, thinking. Lu Zhizhi despaired towards the ceiling. Why did she suddenly cross over here, even though she was still writing wildly the day before yesterday? When feeling sad, a burst of hurried footsteps came from outside the door. Lu Zhou ran in with 2 tall men. The man at the front had a nervous and concerned expression on his face, but when he saw the awake Lu Zhizhi, his face turned cold again. "Wake up. Is there anything else uncomfortable?" Lu Zhizhi shook his head. "The face in my memory met the man in front of me, who should be the elder brother of the original owner, Lu Henghai. The one behind me should be the second brother, Lu Tingyun." Seeing Lu Zhizhi shake his head, Lu Henghai breathed a sigh of relief and then spoke with anger. "Why did you run into the mountains in the middle of the night yesterday? Did you go to find Jiang Jiqing again? You're already married, you know. What do you think about others like this? It's not embarrassing. You even knocked yourself unconscious. If someone happened to pass by and carry you back, you wouldn't know in which beast's mouth you know now." The second brother behind him, Lu Tingyun, saw that the situation was not good and quickly came out to make amends. "Big brother, don't be angry, let me tell you. Little sister, why did you run up the mountain yesterday? Tell me quickly," he said while giving Lu Zhizhi a look. Lu Zhizhi received the huge information in this passage and worked hard to recall the plot in the book. In the book, Lu Henghai watched as Lu Zhizhi became increasingly unruly, and his reputation deteriorated. He could only marry Lu Zhizhi to his good brother. Unexpectedly, Lu Zhizhi not only failed to be honest about it, but also harbored resentment towards Lu Henghai. A few years ago, a large number of educated youth went to the countryside to cut in line. Lu Zhizhi immediately took a liking to Jiang Jing, who had a good family background and appearance, and began a series of persistent pursuits. But Jiang Jing is not a good person in the book. He is one of the suitors of the female lead Lin Min. Despite appearing gentle and refined on the outside, Lu Zhizhi couldn't bear to see him from the bottom of his heart and couldn't bear to part with the benefits he brought. So, while enjoying himself, he fished for Lu Zhizhi and thought of using it for a few years to return to the city and get rid of her. In the 1970s, when it was necessary to secretly fall in love, Lu Zhizhi's behavior was extremely corrupt, adding to her already bad reputation. Damn it. The original owner, don't be too outrageous. All the dogs passing by have to give a few moans, right? The more Lu Zhizhi thinks, the more speechless he becomes. What reason do you have? I see what reason you can make up. Lu Henghai saw Lu Zhizhi in a daze, thinking she was thinking of some excuse to cover it up, and became increasingly angry. He was extremely disappointed with his younger sister, thinking that getting married would make him more restrained, but he didn't expect her to remain stubborn. Lu Zhizhi lowered his head for a moment of thought, and when he looked up, his face flattened with a very aggrieved expression, saying, I was wrong, brother. Lu Henghai looked at his sister, thinking that she wanted to shift the blame by pretending to be pitiful, and the disappointment in her eyes could no longer be hidden. But I didn't go to see Jiang Jiqing yesterday, Lu Zhizhi suddenly said. I heard that the son of Mrs. Li found a very rare herb on the mountain a few days ago and sold it for a lot of money. I just wanted to go up the mountain and have a look. This sentence is not a lie. With the original owner's personality, when she saw someone else's family living well, she naturally became jealous and unwilling. With the mentality that everyone else could find her, Lu Zhizhi ran up the mountain carrying a basket. A few days ago, there was heavy rain and the mountain was very slippery. The original owner accidentally stepped on it and slid down the slope, hitting his head and creaking. Yes, that's it. I couldn't find any herbs, I planted them myself there. At that time, seeing this plot, Lu Zhizhi was speechless for a while. I didn't expect her to be so exemplary when she went offline. But perhaps it was because she wore it over, and this body was only slightly scratched. Lu Henghai clearly didn't believe what Lu Zhizhi said, and the suspicion in his eyes still lingered. Really? Lu Zhizhi looked around and saw a bamboo basket placed in the corner. Look. There are the herbs I picked. After hearing this, Lu Zhou quickly ran to fetch the bamboo basket and saw several grass plants with soil lying inside. Lu Henghai's face only softened a bit. It was him who had a preconceived idea. After all, Lu Zhizhi did not hesitate to secretly run to find Jiang Jing and block him at his doorstep. Thinking about it, Lu Henghai felt a little guilty for wronging Lu Zhizhi, but still had a hint of anger. What are you doing up the mountain? Do you know how dangerous it is? What if something really happens to you? I understand, I'm sorry big brother. Lu Zhizhi apologized honestly. Lu Henghai obviously didn't expect Lu Zhizhi to be so well behaved. It's been a long time since she really talked to him with a friendly face. Shouldn't she just jump up and curse at Lu Henghai as usual? Lu Tingyun was also somewhat surprised. Little sister seems a bit different now. Chapter 2. Suddenly becoming married. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After all, he still couldn't bear to say something serious to Lu Zhizhi. Lu Henghai sighed helplessly and said, "It's okay. You're not allowed to run up the mountain in the middle of the night anymore. Are you hungry?" Then he turned to Lu Zhou and said, "Boil a bowl of egg soup for Zhizhi to eat." "But brother, there are only 3 eggs left at home," Lu Zhou said somewhat awkwardly. Lu Henghai was stunned for a moment and said, "I understand. Let's finish cooking it all." "Oh." Lu Zhou walked out dejected. Lu Zhizhi looked at the scene before him and felt mixed emotions in his heart. I didn't expect that in this era, eggs are so precious that you have to count them and eat them. The elder brother of the original owner is extremely fond of the original owner. Even if the original owner has done so many bad things, they are still willing to give themselves the last egg to eat. She is an orphan who grew up in an orphanage and has never been treated so well before. The care of loved ones is truly unfamiliar. We're going to work in the field now, you stay honest with me. You're not allowed to run around, you know. Although Lu Henghai still felt uneasy, he had to go down to work and could only give half a warning and half a warning to Lu Zhizhi. Got it. After everyone left, Lu Zhizhi's heart shook and suddenly remembered something important. He put on his shoes and walked quickly towards the red plastic mirror on the table. Taking a photo, I saw a jade pendant lying quietly on my fair neck. Upon seeing the familiar necklace, Lu Zhizhi's heart relaxed and he was immediately surprised. I didn't expect this necklace to be worn together, it was the only thing her master gave her before his death. She stuffed the necklace into her clothes and then looked at her face in the mirror. I saw the woman in the mirror, very bright and delicate. Her skin was as smooth as cream, her lips were red and teeth were white, her melon-seed face, and her cheeks were tinged with a faint red color. She had a pair of innocent peach blossom eyes, and her pupils were rippling with water, as if she could hook people. Her small nose and delicate lips. This face is exactly the same as her modern face. At first glance, the original owner was pampered and nurtured from a young age. From her delicate and smooth hands, it can be seen that the original owner has never experienced any hardship. Even due to her younger age, the original owner's face was 3 times more beautiful than her face, which had endured countless nights. Fortunately, my face hasn't changed. Otherwise, with a strange face on my face, even if my inner strength is as strong as Zhizhi, it would be difficult to accept for a while. Although I don't know why I came here inexplicably, I can only settle for it as soon as I come. I can't say I'll wear it back in the next second. She should be grateful that what she has been reading lately is not some post-apocalyptic zombie text, otherwise she would have to wait until death to travel there. Fortunately, since her master passed away, there are no more people in the world worth her concern about. After accepting reality for 10 minutes, Zhizhi walked out. There are many agricultural tools hanging on the stone walls, and a stone table and several wooden benches are placed in the yard. A large tree is planted in the middle, and the sunlight shines through the leaves, making it particularly peaceful. There is a fence next to it, filled with green cabbage. Zhizhi looked at everything in front of him and found it very novel. Walking into the kitchen in the corner, Zhou was humming a fire and cooking. "I'll do it," Zhizhi said in a voice. Zhou was startled and turned around to find Zhizhi standing outside the door. He asked strangely, "What are you doing here?" "Waiting for 10 minutes to eat." Isn't this Zhizhi the one who hates oil fumes the most? He has never been in the kitchen before. Why did he suddenly come over today? "I'll cook," Zhizhi said calmly. She is at least an adult, how can she have her little brother cook for her? "You." Zhou's eyes were full of doubt. "You haven't even touched the pot. What dishes do you make? Did Zhizhi take the wrong medicine today?" Zhizhi didn't want to talk nonsense, so he stepped forward and grabbed the spatula. "Help me make a fire," he said. She doesn't intend to pretend to be the same personality as the original owner, after all, who could have thought of this matter of time travel? Even if it were revealed, few people would believe it. The rural area uses a large pot made of firewood, and she doesn't know how to start a fire. She is quite confident in her cooking skills and has lived alone for over 20 years. Cooking can be said to be very skilled. Zhou was full of suspicion, but still obediently ran to start a fire. Let her mess around, so she doesn't have to mess with me and my older brother and younger brother later. Anyway, there was still some leftover food yesterday, so we'll eat that later. Zhizhi looked at the only ingredients in front of him. Potatoes, a few eggs, wheat flour, a handful of cabbage, and a basket of wild vegetables. The ingredients are scarce. Zhizhi cooks by boiling water and stewing potatoes and cabbage in a pot, skillfully blending noodles with a mentality of watching good movies. Zhou squatted on the side and was surprised to see Zhizhi's skilled movements. Is this her flirtatious sister? When did she learn how to cook? As the sun sets, Lu Henghai and Lu Tingyun walked together on their way home. Lu Henghai pushed open the wooden door, and the courtyard of the Lu family was filled with tempting aroma of food. I saw a pot of stewed cabbage with potatoes, 3 boiled eggs, and a plate of wheat cakes on the table. Lu Tingyun raised an eyebrow and said, "When did Lao Si's craftsmanship improve like this?" At this moment, Zhou walked out with a bowl of steamed buns and saw the two of them. He smiled and said, Big brother, you guys are back. Come and eat. Today's dishes are made by my sister, and she specially waited for you to come back and eat together." Lu Henghai and Lu Tingyun were stunned and said, "What?" Zhizhi heard the commotion and walked out of the room. "You're back, let's eat quickly." Lu Henghai spoke incredulously, "Zhizhi, did you make these dishes?" Zhizhi nodded. "Lu Henghai Petrochemical has been established." Lu Tingyun asked incredulously, "When did you learn how to cook?" "It's broken, I didn't think of a good reason." Zhizhi pondered for a moment and replied, "Just. I saw you cooking too much, so I naturally understood. The original owner was so lazy that even cooking a meal surprised them like this. Lu Henghai's heart is still full of doubts. Lu Zhizhi had no choice but to use Jiang Jing as an excuse. Jiang Jing said before that he likes virtuous women. I want him to learn by eating the dishes I make. Upon hearing this, Lu Hengxier was half dead. His precious little sister learned how to cook for a man. Give it a try, give it a try. Lu Zhizhi smiled awkwardly and changed the topic to urge the two of them. Lu Tingyun tried to smooth things out and said, "Brother, please try my little sister's craft. She just happened to be injured and cooked for us. We can't let down my kindness." After the four of them sat down, they eagerly took a big bite of food and put it into their mouths. Potatoes are very soft and sticky, and they melt right into the mouth. Cabbage is stewed very deliciously, paired with wheat cakes that are just right on heat. Delicious. Lu Zhou widened his eyes. Lu Henghai and Lu Tingyun also nodded. Although the food is ordinary, the taste is not ordinary at all, and the cooking skills of Lu Zhou are indescribable. After eating the food made by Lu Zhou for a long time, Zhizhi's cooking looks particularly delicious. Lu Zhizhi felt a sense of accomplishment when she saw the three of them eating so well. She used chopsticks to pick up an egg for each of them. The three of them were all surprised. Lu Zhizhi was very greedy and protected her food tightly. She usually owned all the good things at home and would never give them to anyone else. What's going on today? Did you break your mind by falling on the mountain? Lu Henghai wanted to put the egg back and said, "This egg is for you. Take it and eat it." Lu Zhizhi shook her head. Eggs were just ordinary food for her, and she said, "I can't eat them anymore. You've been working with your second brother all day. Eat an egg to nourish your body." "I don't have to work, I'll give you something to eat," Lu Zhou said with a head. Lu Zhizhi felt a bit sour in his heart. At his age, children from ordinary families are still precious treasures in the family, and he is only responsible for acting coquettishly without caring about worldly affairs. Surprisingly, he is so sensible. Lu Zhizhi touched the head of Lu Zhou and said, "No need, you're growing your body now, and you should eat more." Lu Zhou widened his eyes in surprise and buried his head in the bowl in admiration. Is this still his sister? His sister usually only despises him for being dirty and asks him to stay away from her. Today, she even touched his head. When he was about to eat, Lu Henghai tentatively spoke up, "Zhizhi, you have been living at home for a long time. Huaishen returned from the army yesterday. Can you look back at home tomorrow?" Lu Zhizhi didn't react and looked at Lu Henghai in confusion. Lu Henghai thought that Lu Zhizhi was not giving up on Jiang Jing, and took a deep breath with a hint of anger in his tone. "You should quickly die of your love for Jiang Jiqing. You have already married someone, you know. Jiang Jiqing is also about to get married, and you are now so entangled with him that it is not good for anyone. Do you know that the villagers are laughing at you now? Huaishen is a good person, worth entrusting for life. Why can't you live a good life with him? If you miss him, you will regret it for a lifetime." After speaking, the courtyard fell silent. Lu Zhou and Lu Tingyun put down their chopsticks and nervously looked at Lu Zhizhi. She's about to reveal her true face, she's about to lift the table and go crazy, Lu Zhizhi suddenly realized. Gu Huaishen from Lu Henghai is the husband of the original owner. He is also the male lead of this novel. Gu Huaishen and Lu Zhizhi's third brother, Lu Yuankong, were once good brothers in the same army, going through life and death. Lu Zhizhi's third brother even blocked bullets for Gu Huaishen, which can be considered as saving Gu Huaishen's life. Not long ago, Lu Henghai saw that his sister's pursuit of Jiang Jiqing had almost gone crazy, and when she was at a loss, he thought of Gu Huaishen. He wanted Lu Zhizhi to marry an excellent person, so that she could take a break from her admiration for Jiang Jing. Gu Huaishen is 7 years older than Lu Zhizhi, with good character and outstanding appearance. He is a sought-after woman in the village, but he has never shown any interest in any girl. Gu Huaishen's grandfather and Zhizhi's grandfather had a very good relationship in their early years. They had the idea of getting a doll marriage, although it was a joke. The relationship between the two families remained good until Lu's grandfather passed away. Lu Henghai brought up this matter with a trial mentality, but unexpectedly, Gu Huaishen also agreed. But how could the original owner be willing? After staying at the Gu family for a day, he made a big fuss and pointed at Gu Huaishen, saying that his toad wanted to eat swan meat and that Lu knew he wouldn't like him even if he died. Then he ran back to the Lu family and threatened suicide. Everyone had to compromise and let her stay temporarily, and Gu Huaishen returned to the army the next day. Unexpectedly, after being single for over 20 years, she suddenly became a married woman. Thinking of this, Zhizhi sighed and said, "Got it, I'll look back at home tomorrow." Even if Lu Henghai doesn't mention it, she will have to take care of her family sooner or later. At least she is also her nominal husband, and she will see her sooner or later. In addition, the author's portrayal of Gu Huaishen is excellent, and she also wants to catch a glimpse of the male lead's beautiful face. What? Lu Henghai was surprised and prepared for a big battle, but unexpectedly, Zhizhi readily agreed. Lu Tingyan's face lit up and he said, "Have you finally figured it out?" Lu Henghai felt that it was not that simple. "Are you really planning to look back at home?" Given Zhizhi's level of madness towards Jiang Jing, he doesn't believe that Zhizhi would easily give up on Jiang Jing. Isn't that a strategy to slow down the situation? Zhizhi said with tearful eyes, "I really figured it out. Jiang Jing refused me so many times, and he thought he was who. And even if I liked him so much, I wouldn't be a third party to interfere with other people's feelings. I really give up on him now. She is not the original owner and doesn't even care about such a hypocrite with a wild heart." Upon hearing Zhizhi's answer, everyone was filled with joy. Although I don't know why Zhizhi suddenly changed, I just hope that she is truly willing to live a good life and not fuss anymore. Chapter 3. Breaking up before falling in love. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next morning, Lu Henghai stuffed 10 yuan into Zhizhi's pocket and earnestly instructed him, "Go back and live a good life with Gu Huaishen. Don't be reckless, you know." Zhizhi knew how important 10 yuan was to this family, so he quickly refused. Lu Henghai put Zhizhi's hand firmly in his attitude and said, "Take it. If that guy Gu Huaishen dares to bully you, tell me. Did you hear that?" Even though Lu knows how mischievous she used to be, she is still his beloved sister for many years, and she is still very reluctant in her heart. Zhizhi held the hot 10 yuan and nodded in emotion. The Gu family is a distance from the Lu family, and Zhizhi recalls the route and calmly walks on the dirt road in the countryside. At this moment it was time for everyone to start working, and many people brushed past Zhizhi, frequently turning their heads and pointing at him. "Oh, the daughter of the Lu family, are you going to find Jiang Jiqing again?" An aunt with a flower scarf on her head sneered when she saw Zhizhi. "Oh, I'm so stubborn, my face is so thick," the other aunt responded, her tone full of disdain. Zhizhi frowned and then curled his lips and smiled. "Who said I'm going to find Jiang Jiqing? Does it matter to you where I'm going? You're spreading rumors, auntie. Is it because the village has sent you too much food to eat and chew on your tongue? Or is the job assigned to you too easy for you to have time to chew on your tongue here? If that's the case, I don't recommend giving the team leader a suggestion to arrange more work for you. You." Auntie was stuttered by the criticism, feeling that today's Zhizhi was so eloquent. "Cut, who doesn't know who else you can find if you're not looking for Jiang Jiqing with such thick skin?" Auntie rolled her eyes, but she was afraid that Jiqing would really run and complain, so she had to leave quickly. How bad the reputation of the original owner is, Zhizhi sighed. She was mentally prepared to face these malicious gazes and language with ease. After walking for about 10 minutes according to the original owner's memory, I arrived at the door of an ordinary rural self-built house. This should be Gu Huaishen's family. Zhizhi was about to knock on the door when he suddenly heard a coquettish female voice coming from inside the room. "Comrade Gu, I heard that Zhizhi hasn't come back yet. You have to train every day, and when you come back, how can you eat without a warm meal? Zhizhi is really good. Even if you liked Jiang Jiqing so much before, you shouldn't have gotten married and continued to pester him. Comrade Gu, you are such a good person. How could Zhizhi not cherish it? This is the dish I just made, don't mind it. Let's make a living and take a bite first." Listening to the intermittent green tea speeches coming from inside the house, Zhizhi's face became somewhat speechless. Why does she feel green on her head? No need, a voice of rejection sounded, and the man's magnetic voice was slightly hoarse. Zhizhi took the opportunity to push open the door. There was a man and a woman standing in the room. The girl was knitting 2 fried dough twists braids and carrying an iron lunchbox. Both of them were stunned when they saw Zhizhi. The girl's face showed a very frightened expression. How could it be Zhizhi? She remembers very clearly, shouldn't Zhizhi have fallen off the mountain and died at this time in her past life? How different from my past life. Zhizhi was also looking at the girl in front of him. This should be the female protagonist, as described in the book. Lin Min has been secretly in love with Gu Huaishen since her past life, and after her rebirth, she launched a fierce attack on him. The girl in front of her is about 1.6 meters tall, with a distinctive oval face and very straight facial features. She can be considered a little beauty, but it doesn't seem as stunning as the author described. After looking at the female lead, he shifted his gaze to the male lead. Approaching a height of 1.9 meters, with wide shoulders and narrow waist, a figure with an inverted triangle, wearing an ordinary white short-sleeved shirt and military green pants. The exposed arm lines are smooth, and the muscles are tight but not exaggerated. His eyebrows and eyes were handsome and cold, his narrow phoenix eyes were sharp and clear. His pitch-black pupils were deep and bottomless, as if he was about to sink in just 2 more seconds. His tall nose bridge and delicate thin lips hiss. So handsome. He is truly the male lead. Zhizhi shouted in her heart, how could every part grow on her aesthetic point? Gu Huai realized that he had been staring at him for a moment, his eyes slightly heavy. How could she suddenly come back? Is it another divorce dispute? Zhizhi. How did you come back? Lin Min broke the deadlock with an uncontrollable panic on her face. Zhizhi smiled slightly and wrote lightly, a few days ago, when I missed my brother, I went back to stay for a few days, but I still have to go back home, and I can't stay with my parents all the time. Lin Min's expression stiffened as she looked at Zhizhi, who was standing across from her, with a hint of jealousy flashing in her eyes. Even though she is all a girl, why can she be spoiled by her brothers and not have to do any work, and her reputation is so bad that she can still marry Gu Huaishen? And for some reason, it's different from the previous life. Zhizhi didn't die, so how could she have the chance to approach Gu Huaishen? Thinking about it, Lin Min's heart was in turmoil, and she showed a jealous expression on her face. Then she forced a smile and pretended to joke, do you really miss your brother? Everyone said you went to find Jiang Jiqing. A few days ago, Aunt Zhang even said she saw you chasing Jiang Jiqing. If I were to say Zhizhi, you should have less contact with Jiang Jiqing. After all, you are both married. Comrade Gu is such a good person. If it were me, I would definitely cherish Comrade Gu. Speaking, he didn't forget to give Gu Huaishen a shy glance. Why is this female lead so teasing? In a few words of belittling, she still remembers to elevate herself. When reading novels, she doesn't really like this female lead. Although the protagonist's past life experiences were tragic, they were all caused by her parents. But the author may be trying to describe a satisfying story about slapping faces, which leads to the female protagonist always attacking indiscriminately after her rebirth, using very cunning methods, causing a lot of hatred but unable to cope. In order to keep the plot going, the author also gave the female lead a lot of licking dogs to help her deal with trouble and take the blame. On the surface, it appears to be the protagonist's rebirth and revenge, but in reality, it is the protagonist and her loyal licking dog. The author used a lot of pen and ink to write about the female protagonist and her pursuer, causing the emotional connection between the male and female protagonists to become very inexplicable. In the book, the male customer Huaishen seems to be a clear stream. He is honest, dedicated, and responsible, which can be considered perfect. In this book, his values are not right, and he appears out of place. The character of the female protagonist Lin Min in the book is infatuated with many people, and her attitude towards her pursuers is also ambiguous. She can't bear to part with the male protagonist and can't let go of the licking dogs, which leads to Zhizhi sympathizing with the male protagonist. Thinking of this, Zhizhi said seriously, "Did you see me pestering Jiang Jiqing with your own eyes? If not, it's better not to believe rumors. After all, seeing is believing. You should not be the kind of person who loves to spread rumors and spread rumors." As he spoke, he walked up to Gu Huaishen and grabbed his arm, saying, "Thank you for reminding me. I will cherish Huaishen well." Gu Huai looked deeply at the petite body suddenly approaching, and his body stiffened. Lin Min almost couldn't hold back the smile on her face. "Damn it," Zhizhi suddenly spoke so eloquently. "How is it different from the previous life? Did something change because of her rebirth? That's good, Zhizhi probably won't be able to cook in time. This is the dish I made. Take it and try it, Comrade Gu." "No need, thank you." Gu Huaishen refused. Being repeatedly rejected, Lin Min's eyes were slightly moist and she ran out with her head down. Walking on the road, Lin Min's resentment grew stronger and stronger in her heart. She was reborn 5 days ago. In her previous life, she was sold by her parents for a dowry of 200 yuan to an old man in his 50s and 60s, and was eventually tortured to death. In this life, she must never repeat the same mistakes. Gu Huaishen will be promoted to the position of chief in a few years, becoming an unattainable presence for everyone. After the death of Zhizhi in his previous life, he did not remarry. She must seize such an excellent man. Although I don't know why Zhizhi hasn't kept up with her previous life, with her level of obsession with Jiang Jing, as long as she helps the situation a little, it will definitely lead to their divorce. She must get Gu Huaishen. Thinking about it, Lin Min's eyes flashed with a hint of malice. After Lin Min left, the yard was very quiet. Cough. Gu Huai let out a deep cough, and Zhizhi let go of his arm as if waking up from a dream. "Why did you suddenly come back?" Gu Huai asked deeply. Zhizhi hasn't figured out how to answer yet. Looking at the silent woman in front of him, Gu Huai's heart became clear. "I promised to marry her initially, on the one hand to repay Lu Yuankong's life-saving kindness, and on the other hand, my grandfather loved her very much. Of course, when he first met Zhizhi, he was amazed by her appearance and had a good impression of her. However, as he got along with Zhizhi, those good feelings were almost worn away. If you have figured it out and still want a divorce, then I respect you. I also want to bring this matter up to you when I come back. However, military marriage is difficult to divorce, and we just got married. We need to wait for me to report it before we can go for divorce. Afterwards, I will give you some money as compensation. During this period, if you want to live here or return to the Lu family, you can." Before he could finish speaking, Zhizhi widened his eyes and interrupted. She only caught the keyword divorce. "Are you divorcing me?" Zhizhi's peach blossom eyes are full of disbelief. Gu Huai was deeply stunned. Didn't she keep arguing for a divorce? She is about to become the first person in the world to break up before falling in love. The more I thought about it, the cooler my heart became. Zhizhi said wrongly, "If you want to divorce me, you can do it, but you have to let me take it slow. After all, I just came from my brother's house and I need to think about how to tell him." Gu Huaishen. Isn't she wanting a divorce? Why does it seem like he forced her to divorce? Isn't it that you've been making a fuss about getting divorced? He was just trying to please her. Zhizhi was stunned and forgot about this. Zhizhi coughed awkwardly and then said seriously, okay, then take your time. It's good to get divorced, after all, the plot is powerful, and she can't force it, nor does she want to get involved in the love-hate entanglement between the male and female leads. However, the male lead really has an appetite for her, so let's take this time to appreciate it more. After all, she has been single since birth for more than 20 years, which is what she deserves. Chapter 4. Ultimate Kinship Group. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Upon hearing Zhizhi's agreement, Gu Huaishen had long anticipated the outcome and only nodded coldly. The two of them stood in opposition in the courtyard of Nuada. Cough. Zhizhi awkwardly placed his hands behind him and pinched. Mom, it's so embarrassing. She hasn't been alone with a boy for a long time. What should she say? Well, you haven't eaten yet, have you? Gu Huai chuckled deeply and said, are you hungry? I'll do it now. After speaking, I plan to enter the kitchen. Hey, wait. Zhizhi quickly grabbed Gu Huaishen's arm and then withdrew as if being scalded. I didn't mean that, I was asking if you didn't eat, what do you want to eat? I'll make it. The seeds of doubt in Gu Huai's heart grew bigger and bigger. Although he only spent a day with Zhizhi, he has heard many rumors that Zhizhi's 10 fingers are not exposed to the sun and spring water. He has never been in the kitchen to cook since childhood and only comes out during meals. After finishing, he pats his butt and leaves, leaving behind a mess. As the name suggests, her hands are very precious. I want her to do housework and dream. Why did my personality change drastically after returning to the Lu family? Zhizhi knew the character of the original owner and had no intention of explaining anything. He only said, but you need to come and help. After all, she doesn't know how to start a fire. The kitchen of the Gu family is similar to that of the Lu family, and it is also a rural stovetop. However, it is much neater than the Lu family, and the ingredients are more abundant, including some flour, eggs, potatoes, vegetables, and even half of the chicken. But the seasoning only consists of simple salt and soy sauce. What do you want to eat? Zhizhi turned his head and asked. Gu Huai suppressed his doubts and answered, it's all possible. Zhizhi looked at the ingredients in front of him, pondered for a moment, and decided to make a potato stewed chicken with stir-fried wheat and vegetables. She rolled up her sleeves and skillfully lowered her head to pick up the knife and cut the potatoes. A strand of hair suddenly slipped from behind her ear, itching as she rubbed against her cheeks. Zhizhi frowned in discomfort and was about to wash her hands and tie her hair. Suddenly, a pair of hands with distinct bone joints reached out and gently placed her hair behind her ears. Zhizhi hesitated slightly and said, thank you. Thank you. Gu Huai let out a deep and low hum. The sunlight shone through the door and their figures were gradually drawn closer. After a busy morning, I finally finished preparing the dishes. Zhizhi quickly took out the meat and brought it to the table. Looking at the dishes in front of him with all their colors, flavors, Gu Huaishen surprisingly developed an incredible emotion. I didn't expect her to really know how to cook, and her craftsmanship seems to be quite good. I tried to put a chopstick of chicken into my mouth, and the smooth and fragrant taste filled my entire mouth. How is it? Zhizhi asked eagerly. Delicious. Gu Huaishen is telling the truth. That's good. When Zhizhi was about to say something more, a hurried knocking on the door suddenly sounded. Ah Huai, open the door. I'm Auntie. The sound was accompanied by a sharp female voice. Gu Huaishen stood up and opened the door. Standing behind the door was a fat and short woman who couldn't wait to squeeze in when she saw the door open. Why did it take so long to open the door? The woman walked and shouted discontentedly. Zhizhi looked at the newcomer and felt a clear understanding in his heart. This is Wang Cuiyan, the sister-in-law of Gu Huaishen. In order to give the female protagonist an opportunity to play, the author has created countless bizarre groups of family and friends for the male protagonist, and this Wang Cuiyan is even more unique among them. In the book, Gu Huaishen's father passed away and his mother remarried. Gu Huaishen grew up living with his grandfather, but because he became a soldier, he couldn't go back home for a long time. As his grandfather grew older, he lived with Uncle Gu Huaishen, the family of Wang Cuiyan. Gu Huaishen gives half of his salary to Wang Cuiyan every month, in order to make his grandfather live a better life and eat better. But Wang Cuiyan took this money as her own, only giving her grandfather some leftovers to eat, and occasionally using excuses for her grandfather to come to Gu Huaishen for food. Oh, isn't this a little dear? Wang Cuiyan saw Zhizhi sitting quietly and sneered, "How did you come back? Didn't anyone dare to force you to look back and commit suicide? You just ran back in a few days." Gu Huaishen has been very outstanding since childhood, surpassing his son in all aspects. Wang Cuiyan looked down on him for a long time and found out that he had married the infamous Zhizhi. After gloating for a long time. In the end, it's not just about marrying a shrew who looks down on you, but also about being excellent. Gu Huaishen behind him heard this sentence and his eyes darkened a bit. As she spoke, Wang Cuiyan suddenly glanced at the food on the table, her eyes lit up, and she shouted at the top of her throat, "Oh! How come you're eating so well? You know you're enjoying it. I don't mean you, little dear. Our family is not rich. How can you make it like this? Let's forget it in our own home. After all, who knows, your 3 brothers dote on you, but you are married and still so extravagant. I have to talk about you. Ah, Huai's grandfather and us, but every day wild vegetables with mantu, we'd better give us meat, and by the way, bring me some rice and a few kilograms of flour. Our food is almost gone." After speaking, I want to take the plate of chicken away. Zhizhi pressed down on Wang Cuiyan's outstretched hand and gave a cold glance. "Have you said enough?" In this era where everyone was barely fed, flour was even more scarce, and she even opened her mouth and demanded a few pounds. "My appetite is really growing stronger and stronger." Wang Cuiyan was taken aback by Zhizhi's gaze, and then shouted even louder, "What are you doing? What's wrong with taking some meat? This is something I want to give to Grandpa Huaishen. Huaishen, take a look at your wife. It's only been a few days since she entered the door, and she can't even give us some meat." Zhizhi clenched Wang Cuiyan's hand even harder and said, "What did Aunt say? Of course we're willing to give Grandpa some meat, but it's not certain who the meat ended up in." Wang Cuiyan withdrew her hand from the pain and a hint of guilt flashed in her eyes. "What are you saying?" "What should I say, Auntie? Huaishen gives you so much money and food vouchers every month, and I'm afraid a family of 6 will have more than enough to use them for a month. If I remember correctly, Huaishen just gave you money 2 weeks ago. Why did you run out of food? I don't believe Grandpa would eat so much and so quickly. I'm afraid you're greedy for this money." Upon hearing this, Gu Huaishen's eyes became increasingly cold, with a deep and bottomless expression. Wang Cuiyan's head was oozing with some cold sweat, but her aura remained strong. "Don't slander people. I go to the supply and marketing cooperative every month to buy some fruits and meat for my grandfather. I serve him with delicious food and drink. What's wrong with spending money so quickly?" The more Wang Cuiyan spoke, the more confident she became. "I am fortunate to have worked hard to serve my grandfather for Huaishen. So why did I ask you to get some food? Anyway, Huaishen doesn't stay at home often and can't eat much." Zhizhi was surprised by the other person's thick skin, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. "He truly deserves to be a top-notch relative. You said you often go to the supply and marketing cooperative to buy things for Grandpa. The people there should be very familiar with you." Do you dare to confront me there and see if you are spending your money there? And why is it that Grandpa's body is getting thinner and thinner after eating so much good food? Instead, it's your son. Oh, he's getting fat like a ball. I've heard more than once that someone saw your family eating delicious and spicy food, and only gave Grandpa a steamed bun to eat overnight. You're talking nonsense. Wang Zuiyan roared angrily, but her heart couldn't stop feeling guilty. How did this little girl know? Did someone really come to her and complain? Is it really me talking nonsense? Just go to the supply and marketing cooperative and you'll know. Let's go. Zhizhi approached and pulled Wang Zuiyan, pretending to go outside. Wang Zuiyan quickly shook off Zhizhi's hand and turned her pleading gaze to Gu Huaishen, sneering, "You don't know what kind of person Auntie is, Huaishen. This woman is clearly slandering me." Gu Huai's deep and handsome face was now very gloomy. He was not unaware that Wang Zuiyan was taking advantage of him, thinking that the money Wang Zuiyan coveted would be treated as a hard-earned allowance for her, and he would turn a blind eye to it in his daily life. Moreover, every time he visits his grandfather, Wang Zuiyan's family prepares a very sumptuous meal for him, so he always thinks that his grandfather is doing well there. But looking at Wang Zuiyan's guilty expression now, it is obvious that this is not the case. Then go to the supply and marketing cooperative to have a look, so as not to say that Zhizhi has wronged you, but also to make those gossipers shut up. Gu Huai said deeply. Wang Zuiyan didn't expect Gu Huaishen to say this. Her face visibly stiffened, and a cold sweat flowed down her forehead. Her eyes rolled around and she said, "Just go." "But I'm not free today. I suddenly remembered that there's something at home and I'll go to that confrontation another day." After finishing speaking, he quickly ran away. Chapter 5. Trigger Space. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at Wang Zuiyan's back, Zhizhi sarcastically smiled. "How do you know she abused her grandfather?" Gu Huaishen suddenly spoke. "Well, I don't know, I just cheated on her. I didn't expect her to be so guilty and cheat out of it." Zhizhi blinked and smiled. Gu Huai looked deeply at the mischievous appearance of the girl in front of him, the haze in his eyes receded a bit, and the corner of his mouth unconsciously hooked. On the other hand, Wang Zuiyan passed by empty-handed and returned empty-handed. Kicking the door open in anger and returning home. Two obese boys aged 11 or 12 eagerly welcomed them. "Mom, are we getting enough to eat? I'm almost starving. Did you bring me those candies from last time?" Wang Zuiyan was full of anger and had nowhere to go. She said fiercely, "Eat, eat, eat whatever you want, you haven't received anything." Upon hearing these words, the two boys stopped working in an instant and rolled on the ground. They even grabbed a hand of mud and threw it at Wang Zuiyan, saying, "Wow, ah ah ah. I'm going to eat candy. Get it for me quickly. Otherwise, I'll kill you." Wang Zuiyan's eyes turned red with anger, but she was reluctant to hit her precious son. He could only vent his anger on Grandpa Gu, who had just returned home, and said, "Did you hear me, old man? Your grandson is hungry. He wants to eat, so why don't you go make it?" Grandpa Gu had just gone to the mountain to pick up branches and arrived home with a large bundle of branches on his back. After listening, he quickly put down the branches trembling inside. He hunched his body and walked into the kitchen, saying, "Okay, I'll cook now." Old and immortal, if it weren't for the sake of Gu Huaishen's money, who would care about you? Wang Zuiyan muttered. If it weren't for Zhizhi, she wouldn't have missed the grain. No, if it continues like this, she won't be able to take any advantage. She needs to find a way. After finishing his meal, Gu Huaishen was called out by several young people to help prepare things. Zhizhi was also enjoying his leisure, and after tidying up the dishes, he visited the Gu family. The Gu family built a house with bricks, which was quite good in the harsh rural areas of the 1970s. There were 2 rooms inside, one should be Gu Huaishen's, and the other was piled up with miscellaneous items. In Gu Huaishen's room, there was only a mahogany bed, a cabinet, and a table. On the bed, there was only a quilt stacked into tofu blocks, and several clothes were neatly stacked and placed in the cabinet. There are two somewhat old books on the table, as well as a notebook and a pen. On the wall, there was a half-left she character, which was very abrupt. The other half should have been torn apart by the original owner, and the plot from the book comes to mind in Zhizhi's mind. The original owner pointed at Gu Huaishen's nose and cursed, "Even if you get married to me, my heart will still be with Jiang Jing. My people and my heart belong to him. Don't expect a toad to eat swan meat. I tell you, you don't deserve it. Where can you compare to Jiang Jing? Jiang Jing is from the city, and I will live with him in the city in the future. You go divorce me immediately." Thinking of this, Zhizhi awkwardly covered his face. Why should she take on the responsibility of the original owner for the brainless act? But since she has worn it over, she can only accept her fate. She doesn't intend to just be a little cook at home. In this era, without work, there is no food to eat. If I remember correctly, the original owner should have a high school education. In this era where everyone can't eat enough, high school education is very rare and precious. This is thanks to the fact that the older brother of the original owner realized the importance of studying and forced the original owner to finish high school. Otherwise, due to her urinary nature, she should have dropped out of school long ago. In modern times, she was admitted to the best medical school in China through her own efforts. Later, by chance, she met Li Yuan, a renowned and influential traditional Chinese medicine practitioner specializing in the study of difficult and complicated diseases, who was her master. Now that she has traveled unexpectedly, she will not rely on others to live, but will strive to create her own career. After setting the goal, Zhizhi was full of motivation in his heart. Suddenly, a warm sensation emanated from her chest. Zhizhi was surprised and took out the jade pendant from his neck. At this moment, the jade pendant emitted a faint light. Zhizhi took off the pendant and planned to study this eerie scene carefully. Suddenly, the jade pendant emitted a dazzling light, and Zhizhi unconsciously covered his eyes with his hand. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in an open field with a small pool not far away. Fuck. She won't be wearing it again, will she? Dear knows the desperate thoughts. Suddenly, Yu Guang was attracted by the large green grass beside him. Zhizhi squatted down to carefully examine, and after seeing it clearly, he wished to shout and swear his excitement. What kind of grass is this? These are precious herbs. Many precious herbs that she had only seen in books were now in front of her. Where exactly is this? How could there be so many herbs? Suddenly, Zhizhi remembered the jade pendant in his hand and a strange scene just now. An absurd idea emerged in her mind. This can't be space, can it? Did she just trigger something to come in? If so, how did she come in and how should she go out? Zhizhi tentatively shouted, "Get out!" In an instant, a surge of attraction struck, and as he opened his eyes, Zhizhi returned to Gu Huaishen's room. Looking at the familiar scene in front of her, Zhizhi took a deep breath. Sure enough, she had space. Is this the golden finger for her to wear books? Zhizhi clenched the jade pendant in his hand, suppressing his inner joy, and said, "Go in." As soon as these words were spoken, Zhizhi appeared again in the space. Looking at the herbs in front of him, Zhizhi's eyes were filled with excitement. This is the legendary golden finger. In this 1970s when medical resources were scarce, she had so many herbs that could treat various diseases and save many lives. After calming down his inner joy, Zhizhi stepped out of space and solemnly put the jade pendant back on his neck. Thank you, Master, for leaving her this jade pendant. She will definitely do her best to save more lives. Zhizhi spent the whole day soaking in space, carefully identifying each herb, until it was getting late before coming out. Gu Huaishen also returned home at this time. Gu Huaishen seemed not accustomed to having more people at home, and when he saw Zhizhi in the room, he was slightly taken aback. "You're back," Zhizhi said first. Gu Huai let out a muffled sound and picked up his clothes, intending to take a shower. "A muffled gourd." Zhizhi pouted in dissatisfaction. Gu Huaishen took a quick shower and walked in after only about 5 minutes. At the moment of seeing Gu Huaishen, Zhizhi's thoughts instantly turned into male bodhisattva. Gu Huai wore a loose white vest, with a wet patch in the middle. It outlined a sturdy chest against the skin, and the exposed arm muscles had smooth lines, implying explosive power. A drop of water slid along his narrow eyebrows and eyes, landing on his sexy collarbone. Zhizhi's eyes straightened as he looked. This scene is a great temptation for someone who has been single for many years and has never been close to a man. What is the face and figure of this universal sentient being, not a male bodhisattva? Gu Huai realized that Yu Dao was about to glare at him, and turned his head to stare at Zhizhi with wide eyes. After being discovered, Zhizhi averted his gaze as if nothing had happened and said, "It's quite dark tonight." Soon, Zhizhi discovered a serious problem. This is just a bed, how can they both sleep? Although Gu Huaishen has a great appetite for her, it's too fast to sleep in the same bed after only getting to know her for a day without waiting for Zhizhi to rack his brain and brainstorm. Gu Huaishen dug out a blanket from the cabinet. Just as he was about to go out, he was stopped by Zhizhi. "Where are you going?" "Sleeping in the next room." In the afternoon, Zhizhi looked at the neighboring room, which was filled with miscellaneous items, except for a small wooden bed in the middle. Gu Huaishen was nearly 1.9 meters tall and nestled on that small bed, feeling uncomfortable even thinking about it. Zhizhi frowned and felt a little guilty, blaming himself for occupying his bed. "No, you can't sleep here," he said. Gu Huai raised his eyebrows slightly. A few days ago, she drove him to sleep there, saying that sleeping in the same room as him polluted the air. "Why did you go back to the deer's house and change your mind? This is originally your room, you sleep here, I'll go sleep next door." Gu Huaishen was surprised that Zhizhi would give up the bed to him and willingly go to sleep next door. Zhizhi had changed too much. But he shook his head and said, "No need, I'm used to sleeping. You can sleep peacefully." Without waiting for Zhizhi to refuse, he strode out. Chapter 6. This man, damn it, is so considerate. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 7. Provocation. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After bidding farewell to Zhizhi and Lu Henghai, he continued to move forward in the eyes of Lu Henghai's contentment. Under a nearby tree, surrounded by 2 men and a woman, I saw Zhizhi walking towards them. One of the men with an inch head rubbed Jiang Jing with his hand and said, "Hey Jiang Jing, look, is that Zhizhi? She came to give you something again, Jiang Jing." Jiang Jing let out a noncommittal nod and looked at Zhizhi's beautiful figure, his face filled with pride. "Ah, if I had to say, your fate is better, this Zhizhi may not have a good brain, but she is really good looking. If I were to agree to her pursuit." "Wang Gang, what did you say about you? When everyone is as shallow as you." The girl next to her angrily glanced at Zhizhi with jealousy. "What if you look good, isn't Jiang Jing looking down on you? Cut and dress up beautifully to seduce people. Be careful Zhang Xiaoqi, she's trying to seduce your partner." Jiang Jing's eyes were filled with an indescribable sense of pride. He knew that Zhizhi would soon come to him to show goodwill. After listening, Zhang Xiaoqi's face instantly turned extremely ugly. She glared fiercely at Zhizhi and said, "Does she want face or not? How dare she come and pester Jiang Jing? I wonder if he and I are getting married soon." After speaking, he stood up angrily and shouted at Zhizhi not far away, "Do you want to face Zhizhi? Do you want to pester Jiang Jiqing again? Zhizhi paused and looked at Zhang Xiaoqi with ease. This is Jiang Jing's fiancée AE, right? In the book, Zhang Xiaoqi's father is the village captain, and the villagers dare not provoke her, causing Zhang Xiaoqi to be very arrogant and domineering, walking horizontally in the village. Jiang Jing only wanted to approach Zhang Xiaoqi after seeing her father's identity. However, after marriage, the two were not happy. Within 2 months, the fickle Jiang Jing was attracted to Lin Min after being reborn, leaving Zhang Xiaoqi as his wife. He turned a blind eye and pursued Lin Min. Didn't I warn you? Even if you stick behind him every day and give him gifts, he can't possibly like you. Don't be like a puppy. Zhang Xiaoqi's voice was loud, and everyone's attention was already focused on the four of them. At this moment, seeing Zhizhi and Zhang Xiaoqi facing each other, they were extremely excited. Here we go, there's another good show to watch. Last time Zhizhi and Zhang Xiaoqi ran into each other, they had a heated argument and almost got into a fight. Are we going to start fighting directly this time? Wang Gang also saw the excitement and didn't mind stirring up trouble. Are you here again to give Jiang Jiqing mung bean soup? It's really hard for you, Comrade Lu. And one of the protagonists, Jiang Jing, had a smile on his face. 2 women were vying for jealousy over him. As a man, he was certainly very proud, but on the surface, he was still trying to appease Zhang Xiaoqi. Don't worry, Xiaoqi. I only have you in my heart, and I only treat Zhizhi as my younger sister. Poochie. Zhizhi couldn't help but laugh when he heard these words. Why are you laughing? Zhang Xiaoqi asked angrily. Don't worry, Comrade Zhang. Not everyone will be as blind as you, treating a pile of dog poop as a treasure. What are you saying? Zhang Xiaoqi suddenly widened her eyes and her cheeks turned red with anger. Do you dare to say that Jiang Jiqing is dog shit? As soon as these words were spoken, the people around immediately burst into laughter. Zhizhi shrugged and said, That's what you said, I didn't say that. You. Alright, Xiaoqi. Jiang Jing interrupted in a voice, Don't make any noise. Zhizhi is also kind enough to bring us mung bean soup. It's better not to make things difficult for her. Zhizhi, give me the mung bean soup and leave quickly. After speaking, he reached out to grab mung bean soup, but was dodged by Zhizhi. Who told you this is for you? Please take it seriously. Jiang Jing was stunned for a moment and gave a clear smile, saying, Don't be stubborn. If you do this again, I will be angry. Zhizhi looked up and down at Jiang Jing with mocking eyes and said, If there is no mirror at home, there should be urine. Can you take care of yourself? Jiang Jing couldn't hold back his smile and said with a slightly unpleasant expression, What are you talking about? It's not for me, but for someone else. Don't make a fuss, Zhizhi, bring it quickly. Does Jiang Jiqing have delusions? Am I familiar with you and come to grab my mung bean soup? Other people's things can be said to be given to him. How big is his face? Will he dare to rob on the street next time? This is mung bean soup for Gu Huaishen. What does it have to do with you? Also, who is your sister? Am I familiar with you? I have 3 biological brothers, but I don't lack your brother. Upon hearing these words, the reactions of the people around were all very unexpected, whispering. What's wrong with Zhizhi? Does she really dislike Jiang Jiqing? It's impossible, I chased so fiercely a few days ago. Shouldn't it be being taken away? The changes are so significant. Speaking of which, Jiang Jiqing is really shameless. If it weren't for him, he would have grabbed it. It's just that he's usually polite, I really can't tell he's so shameless. Che, maybe it's because the deer knew they wanted to be captured. What are you saying? Zhizhi. Zhang Xiaoqi asked incredulously. Not to mention, Comrade Zhang and Jiang Jiqing are quite compatible. Both of them have delusions. Do you think women all over the world like Jiang Jiqing? Then I advise you to keep a close eye on your future husband and not let him go out and recognize his younger sister indiscriminately. After all, not everyone is as magnanimous as me and can tolerate him going crazy here. I don't know how lacking in love is, so you want to be someone else's brother. Lu Zhizhi sneered. You. Lu Zhizhi, don't regret it. Jiang Jing's face turned pale and blue, feeling very embarrassed. He glared at Lu Zhizhi angrily and shouted. Ah, right, quickly get out of my way. Don't get in my way. Lu Zhizhi didn't want to talk nonsense with the two of them, and she had to go and deliver mung bean soup to Gu Huaishen. She ignored the crowd behind her and continued walking towards the field. At this moment, Gu Huaishen was resting under a tree. He closed his eyes and sweat flowed down his forehead. The hot wind blew, and a refreshing fragrance suddenly surged into his nose. Gu Huaishen. Lu Zhizhi patted Gu Huaishen's shoulder. Gu Huaishen suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the girl who suddenly appeared. I cooked some mung bean soup to quench your thirst. Lu Zhizhi handed the bottle to Gu Huaishen. Gu Huaishen took it and looked down at the bottle in his hand, then looked up at Lu Zhizhi. The girl's fair face turned red from the sun, making her particularly cute. Thank you. Hurry up and drink. I didn't put too much sugar, it might not taste very good, but as long as it can quench my thirst. Upon hearing this, Gu Huaishen opened his cup and looked up to take a sip, his sexy Adam's apple rolling up and down. It's delicious, Gu Huaishen said seriously. Then drink more, Lu Zhizhi said with a curved smile. Under the tree shadow, the chirping of cicadas came from time to time, and their eyes collided from time to time. It was unclear whether the sun was too intense, and their eyes were filled with quietly rising flames. As the sun sets, Lu Zhizhi and Gu Huaishen walked together on their way home. Comrade Gu, Zhizhi. A coquettish female voice came from behind. The two of them stopped at the same time and looked back. I saw Lin Min catching up quickly, and the skin on his face was not sure if it was sunburned or shy. So coincidentally, let's go together, he said. Lu Zhizhi sighed inwardly, wondering why she would be interrupted every time she was alone with Gu Huaishen. Lin Min intimately held Lu Zhizhi's hand and smiled, saying, Zhizhi, why are you free to go to the field today? Is it possible to go find Jiang Jiqing again? Why do you pay so much attention to Jiang Jiqing and mention him as soon as you see me? Can it be that you like Jiang Jiqing? Lu Zhizhi suddenly realized. Lin Min was afraid that Gu Huaishen would misunderstand, so she quickly waved her hand and denied, what are you talking nonsense about? How could I possibly like Jiang Jiqing? Oh, Lin Min changed the topic and said, do you know that you usually don't have to do anything while lying at home? Sigh, I envy you so much. I'm not as lucky as you. I have to go down to work. Lu Zhizhi couldn't adapt well to the other person's contact, so he casually pulled out his hand and said, really, that's really hard work for you. Alas, unfortunately it's tough, but I think you still need to do some work, Zhizhi. After all, you've married Comrade Gu, and you can't be as comfortable as before. Otherwise, he would be so fortunate and miserable. Lin Min didn't know that Lu Zhizhi had returned to work in the phone world today, and said with a kind expression on her face. Lu Zhizhi felt very speechless in his heart. Why does this female lead always have a strong preaching flavor when speaking? No need. Gu Huaishen suddenly spoke up, she can be at home as she is here. I can afford to take care of her. Upon hearing these words, Lu Zhizhi was slightly stunned and his face quickly warmed up. Damn it, Gu Huaishen, don't be too knowledgeable. Lin Min didn't expect Gu Huaishen to speak out and refute, and her face immediately turned very pale. She sneered, that would be great. But the hands clenched their fists in jealousy, without even feeling their nails ingrained in their flesh. Chapter 8. Rescuing Children Suspected. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Let's go to my house for dinner today, Comrade Gu. We have meat to eat today, and my dad just went to the supply and marketing cooperative to buy a piece of pork. Lin Min looked at Gu Huaishen unwillingly and said. Zhizhi probably won't go, after all, you're busy looking for Jiang Jiqing. But I think Zhizhi is also tired of eating big fish and meat, so he definitely doesn't like our little pork. She still lowered her head as she spoke, so pitiful. Lu Zhizhi is somewhat puzzled. Why is Lin Min so cheap? I didn't even notice it while reading. Lu Zhizhi was about to say something when Gu Huaishen interrupted him. No need, you can keep it for yourself to eat. Suddenly, Lin Min's face was full of colorful excitement. As we approached the Gu family, we could see two figures standing at their doorstep from a distance. Seeing Gu Huaishen, the figure immediately ran up. It is a woman holding a child around 3 or 4 years old, with tightly closed eyes, weak breathing, and an extremely abnormal cyan-purple color on her face. Comrade Gu, hurry up and save my 2 dogs, the woman cried with tears streaming down her face. What's going on? Gu Huai frowned deeply and asked. I don't know either. As soon as I got off work, I saw him lying on the ground, unable to wake up no matter how he barked. Please lend me your bike so that I can take my second dog to the hospital, the woman said intermittently, her eyes filled with panic and confusion. I lent my car to Hu Bashan yesterday. Don't worry, Hu Bashan's house is not far from here. I'll go get it back now, Gu Huaishen said and ran away quickly. Lu Zhizhi's expression suddenly became serious. She walked up to check and placed her fingers under the child's nose to explore her breath, which was very weak. Did you give him anything to eat when you went out? The woman's mind was very confused and she tried to recall, I don't remember. Yes. I stuffed him with a candy before I left. Lu Zhizhi's heart trembled, it's terrible. It must be stuck in the throat by sugar, and the airway is completely blocked. Lu Zhizhi quickly reached out to hold the child, placed him on the ground, and pressed his hand against the child's navel to make an impact. The woman was immediately shocked and said, What are you doing? What are you going to do? At this moment, Lin Min quickly spoke up and said, Do you know what trouble you're causing? Even if Aunt Li usually speaks ill of you, you can't joke about her child's life. Upon hearing this, Aunt Li became even more agitated and strengthened Lu Zhizhi's desire to harm her child. She came forward and fiercely grabbed Lu Zhizhi, tearing her heart apart and shouting, Bastard! You quickly let go of my child. Someone. Lu Zhizhi is going to kill someone. Lu Zhizhi was so disturbed that he couldn't continue. He turned his head and glared at Aunt Li, shouting, Let's go. If you want your son to live, shut up. I'm trying to save him. Lu Zhizhi's gaze was as sharp as a blade, piercing deep into a person's heart. Aunt Li was frightened and froze for a moment, kneeling on the ground crying. I know you should stop messing around. You haven't learned any way to save people. You're killing someone, you know. Give the child back to the lady. Lin Min started stirring up trouble again, her eyes full of undisguised schadenfreude. Let's make a fuss, it's better to make it bigger. This way, Lu Zhizhi will definitely not have a good ending, and Gu Huaishen will definitely divorce her. Lu Zhizhi repeated the first aid actions, with a lot of sweat oozing from his forehead. Hearing Lin Min's words, his eyes became even colder. Mrs. Li's voice attracted a lot of onlookers, and everyone was puzzled when they saw this scene. After hearing Lin Min's words, they suddenly realized. This dear knows what's going on, and I haven't heard of her being a mediocre person. That's right, she can tolerate no matter how mischievous she is on a daily basis, but this is a living existence. She's still hammering the child's stomach. Is she trying to kill him? Lu Zhizhi knows that you should return the child to the family quickly. Do you really want to kill the child? Despite the loud noise and discussions around him, Lu Zhizhi continued to repeat the same action as if he had not heard it. When Gu Huaishen rushed back in less than 5 minutes, he had already surrounded many people. He opened the crowd and saw Zhizhi in the middle, who was stunned. "What are you doing?" Zhizhi quickly said, "Help me stop them." Gu Huai felt a chill in his heart and hesitated for a moment. Believe me, Zhi knew. At this moment, Zhizhi exuded a sense of confidence and determination all over his body. Gu Huaishen ultimately chose to believe in Zhizhi and turned around to stop the emotionally agitated Aunt Li. Suddenly, the child in Zhizhi's arms coughed, and a white lump came out of his mouth, rolling to the ground, covered in sand. But Zhizhi did not relax because of this, and his face remained very serious. He placed the child flat on the ground. The child had been deprived of oxygen for too long and could no longer breathe on his own. He had to undergo cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Repeatedly pressing the heart for about 5 minutes, the unconscious child finally slowly opened his eyes, and his turquoise face turned red. "Ha!" Zhizhi breathed a sigh of relief and stopped his movements. Ergo. Aunt Li saw her child sober up at this moment and used all her strength to break free from the constraints and rush forward to embrace him. Ergo, you finally woke up. You scared your mother to death, sobbing. Mother, the child spoke weakly. Watching this incredible scene before them, everyone's hearts trembled. How could it be? This Zhizhi actually saved the child with these few actions. For a moment, the spoken language that had just been attacking Zhizhi turned into praise. Li Auntie hugged the lost and regained child, ecstatic and grateful, and said to Zhizhi, "Thank you for saving my child's life." Sob. I kowtowed to you. Thank you. After finishing speaking, Zhizhi was about to kneel down when he quickly stopped Aunt Li and said, "Don't talk about this for now. The child has been lacking in oxygen for too long. Hurry up and send him to the hospital for a check. Up to see if there are any sequelae." Upon hearing these words, Aunt Li's face immediately became nervous and she hurriedly said, "Okay, I'll send him right away." Gu Huaishen spoke up and said, "I'm with you." "Okay, thank you Comrade Gu." After the three of them left, Lin Min originally wanted to take the opportunity to escape. She never expected that Zhizhi, such a fool, could really save the child. Stop. Zhizhi keenly caught Lin Min in the corner. "Are you not going to apologize to me, Lin Min?" Lin Min's body stiffened, and she slowly turned her head, wanting to use a playful joke to pass by. "I didn't expect to know that you are so powerful that you can really save Aunt's child." Zhizhi sneered and said, "So who is really causing trouble?" Lin Min's face turned pale as she squeezed out a few words from her mouth. "I don't know how you really know how to save people. Can you expose the matter without knowing a word? Even if you don't believe me, why keep stirring up trouble on the side? If your aunt's child really lost the opportunity to save her and passed away, can you bear this responsibility?" Zhizhi asked with a tone of questioning, her passionate peach blossom eyes filled with sharpness at this moment. "I." Lin Min's forehead oozed a fine, cold sweat, and her eyes fluttered with fear. The people around also followed suit and criticized. "Lin's daughter usually looks quite honest, how could she do such a thing? It's really unfair. If Auntie's child really dies, it's all because of her." Lin Min listened to the voices of people around her and finally couldn't resist the pressure. She struggled to squeeze out 3 words with her lips. "I'm sorry." She quickly fled the scene. It wasn't until midnight that Gu Huaishen returned home under the moonlight. At this moment, Zhizhi had just finished taking a shower and was sitting in front of the mirror combing his hair. When he saw Gu Huaishen coming back, he didn't turn his head and said, "You're back. There are steamed buns and vegetables in the kitchen. You can eat them when you're hot." After thinking for a moment, he said again, "By the way, thank you today. If it weren't for Gu Huai's deep obstruction to stop the excited crowd, her rescue wouldn't have been so smooth." Gu Huaishen looked quietly at Zhizhi, his pupils as deep and profound as night, making it difficult to discern. "Who the hell are you?" Gu Huaishen suddenly spoke up and asked, his voice deep and hoarse, his gaze sharp like a sword, as if he wanted to pierce through the secrets in a person's heart. Zhizhi's performance today is extremely calm, and the calm and composed temperament he possesses cannot exist in the original Zhizhi. Her movements are also very professional, and without training, it is impossible to achieve such precision in such a short time. Zhizhi's body stiffened, and then he looked at Gu Huaishen as if nothing had happened. He tilted his head and said, What did you say? I didn't hear you clearly. Gu Huai withdrew his gaze from Zhizhi and said, It's nothing. I should be the one who thanked you. You have had a hard day today. Saying yes, Gu Huaishen turned around and left the room. Zhizhi looked at the empty room and breathed a sigh of relief. Just now, Gu Huaishen's gaze gave her a feeling that she was completely naked and had been exposed by him. Her behavior today is really abnormal, and Gu Huai deeply suspects that it is also normal. But as long as she doesn't admit it, Gu Huaishen can't do anything about her outside the courtyard. Gu Huai leaned deep against the wall, his handsome face hidden in the darkness, as if blending with the night. He lowered his head and picked up the lighter, his eyes habitually narrowed, his slender fingers lightly tapped, and with a pop sound, a firelight ignited. Gu Huaishen brought the cigarette closer to the firelight, and after lighting it, the cigarette end emitted a faint red light. He took a deep breath and slowly exhaled, and the smoke swirled slowly and hazily in front of his cold outline. Zhizhi is now making it even more difficult for him to figure out. She seemed to have changed people. Chapter 9. Antley comes to repay. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After yesterday's incident, Zhizhi couldn't help feeling guilty when he looked up at Gu Huaishen. After their gaze met for the nth time, Zhizhi seemed to be electrocuted, rigidly relying on his gaze. Cough. Gu Huaishen's gaze suddenly froze on the girl's neck. There is a long scratch on the delicate and slender neck, which looks particularly glaring on fair skin. Gu Huai frowned deeply and silently walked into the room, pulling out ointment. When Zhizhi was in a daze, a pair of hands with distinct joints and ointment appeared in her sight. The deer looked up in confusion. You have a neck injury. Ha! Zhizhi lowered his head in confusion to check. The scratch was located behind the side, and he struggled to turn his head to a different angle but couldn't see the injured area. In the end, she reluctantly gave up searching for the wound and shrugged, I think I accidentally caught it yesterday. The wound shouldn't be deep, it shouldn't be a problem. Gu Huai let out an imperceptible sigh, walked behind her, twisted open the ointment, and touched a little on his hand. Hiss. Zhizhi shrank his neck in fear of the sudden tactile sensation. Itching. Don't move. Gu Huai's deep, magnetic voice rang in Zhizhi's ear. He grabbed her shoulder with one hand and gently applied ointment to her slender neck with the other. Zhizhi's neck was very sensitive. She bit her lips tightly and felt the places touched by Gu Huai burning, only feeling itchy and numb. All right. It wasn't until Gu Huaishen's voice sounded that Zhizhi regained consciousness. A faint blush appeared on her cheeks, and her delicate face appeared particularly charming and adorable. She hesitated and said, Thank you, thank you. On the winding path, an old man was walking slowly with a bamboo basket on his back. The contents of the basket seemed heavy, and the old man was walking very hard. Suddenly, the old man seemed to stumble over something and stumbled underfoot. Zhizhi happened to pass by and saw this scene. He quickly ran forward to help the old man. The old man was taken aback when he saw the sudden appearance of Zhizhi, and then a surprised expression appeared on his face. It's Zhizhi. Grandpa Gu. Zhizhi was also somewhat surprised, and the old man in front of him was Gu Huaishen's grandfather. Zhizhi quickly took the bamboo basket from Grandpa Gu's back and said, Grandpa, I'll carry it. Grandpa Gu looked at Zhizhi with a smile on his face, his eyes overflowing with love. Thank you Zhizhi. He also watched as Zhizhi grew up. Lu Zhizhi had been pink since childhood and was very likable. Later, when she became his granddaughter-in-law, she became even more joyful and satisfied. "Grandpa, why are you here?" Lu Zhizhi asked. "I can't stay idle at home, so I went up the mountain to dig some wild vegetables." Lu Zhizhi frowned as he looked at the bamboo baskets full of wild vegetables and firewood. "Grandpa, it's so dangerous for you to go up the mountain alone. If you don't have enough food, come to me for it. Don't go digging vegetables anymore. What if you fall?" Lu Zhizhi used to treat him coldly every time he saw him before, but today he took the initiative to care about him. Grandpa Gu was very pleased and promised, okay, Grandpa knows. Grandpa Gu is the best person to the original owner in the book, apart from his relatives. Lu Zhizhi felt a sense of familiarity in his heart when he saw him, as if he had seen his master. "Grandpa, did Auntie ask you to go up and dig wild vegetables? How did their family treat you?" Grandpa Gu quickly denied, No, it's me who can't stay idle. They treat me quite well." Upon hearing these words, Lu Zhizhi's heart did not let go. She had just experienced what kind of person Wang Zueyan was. "Grandpa, come to my house for dinner today." Grandpa Gu waved his hand and didn't want to cause any trouble for Lu Zhizhi. "No need, Zhizhi. Your aunt stewed pork ribs at home today, and Grandpa will eat there," he said. Lu knew that he couldn't resist Grandpa Gu, so he had to help Grandpa Gu bring his things to Wang Zueyan's house. He planned to have Gu Huaishen go and call Grandpa Gu later. After taking Grandpa Gu to the vicinity of Wang Zueyan's house, Lu Zhizhi returned on the same path. Just as he approached the door and wanted to open it, two figures suddenly appeared and stopped her. "Comrade Lu!" Aunt Li called out to Lu Zhizhi. Aunt Li's face was filled with a simple smile and her eyes were full of gratitude, saying, "Comrade Lu, I came to thank you. Thanks to you last time, I went to the hospital for a check-up, and the doctor said fortunately you did the rescue in a timely manner. Otherwise, our second dog would not have been saved. Thank you very much." Speaking, I couldn't help but sob. "I'm really sorry about you. I wanted to stop you at that time. I was really upset by the lard. I'm really sorry, Comrade Lu." Next to Aunt Li stood a short and honest-looking man who comforted her by patting her shoulder. He turned to Lu Zhi and said, "Thank you really, we don't have anything good to repay you. This is a piece of pork and fish, and there is 50 yuan left. I hope you don't mind." Lu Zhizhi quickly declined, No need. As long as the child is fine, remember not to give him too much food next time. A child who is not careful can easily get stuck in the throat." "Hey, I know Comrade Lu." Aunt Li nodded quickly. "Take it, Comrade Lu. These things are insignificant compared to Ergo's life. You are the benefactor of our family," the man said urgently, his eyes slightly moist, and he stuffed the things into Lu Zhizhi's arms. At the time of the accident, he happened to not be at home. Later, his fellow villagers informed him that his son was in the hospital, and he suddenly panicked, feeling that the sky was falling. It wasn't until he saw that his child was safe and sound that he let go. Later, when his wife mentioned that it was Lu Zhizhi who saved his child, he felt extremely grateful. Lu Zhizhi still refused to accept it. She didn't save people for anything, her life was greater than anything, as long as the child was safe. But Aunt Li was clearly mistaken, with a wrinkled face full of shame. "Comrade Lu, are you blaming Aunt for saying bad things about you before? It's Aunt's fault. I shouldn't have listened to rumors at that time. Comrade Lu is such a good person." Although she had never been in contact with Lu Zhizhi, people around her had been discussing Lu Zhizhi's glorious deeds in her ears. In addition, she had encountered Lu Zhizhi several times, and Lu Zhizhi had a very arrogant attitude, which made her attitude towards Lu Zhizhi even worse. "I've said before not to listen to the villagers' chatter, but you just won't listen." As they watched their emotions become increasingly excited, Lu Zhizhi quickly comforted them and said, "No, no, I really don't blame your aunt. I didn't even take this matter to heart." "Really?" Aunt Li lifted her tearful face. Lu Zhizhi nodded sincerely. "Then you can keep these things." Lu Zhizhi sighed helplessly and said, "Then I'll take a fish. You can take the rest back." "No way." Aunt Li stuffed a bamboo basket filled with food into Lu Zhizhi's arms. "You can take it, Comrade Lu, so that our conscience can live on." After speaking, fearing that Lu Zhizhi would postpone it again, he quickly grabbed his husband and ran away, leaving a sentence. "Next time, come to my wife's house for dinner." "Hey!" Lu Zhizhi stretched out Kong's hand in place. Li Auntie was walking home with her husband when she encountered several women gathered together eating melon seeds. "Oh, Ah Fong has returned. How is Go?" "It's not a big deal, is it?" one of the women waved and asked. Aunt Li stopped and answered, "It's nothing else. I can jump and jump now." "That's good, I heard it was Lu Zhizhi who saved your son." As soon as Aunt Li was about to say something, another woman couldn't wait to answer. "Cut, do you also believe this? Just Lu Zhizhi has that kind of virtue. It would be good if she didn't come out and add fuel to the fire. She spends all day either staying at home, gnawing on her 3 brothers, or chasing men. I haven't heard of her learning any medical skills. It was Comrade Gu who rode his bike and sent the second dog to the hospital for treatment. Oh no, I don't believe it either. Even deer know how to save people and pigs can climb trees." Aunt Li's face became increasingly ugly as she listened, and it was these people who were constantly chewing their tongues and misleading her. "I tell you, it was Comrade Lu who saved my son. Without her, my son would have gone to see the Prince of Yen long ago. Comrade Lu is such a good person. You are spreading rumors here. If you have free time, please do more work, chew on others' tongues less, and be careful of retribution." "Hey, what are you talking about? You." Mrs. Li ignored everyone's ugly expressions and pulled her husband away. As soon as Gu Huaishen returned home, he saw Lu Zhizhi squatting in a corner, looking at a bamboo basket full of ingredients in front of him, feeling a bit puzzled. "What's wrong?" Gu Huaishen asked. "It's the aunt from yesterday. She brought me a lot of meat and vegetables today, and I couldn't stop her from giving them to me." Lu Zhizhi held his cheeks and pursed his lips slightly. Gu Huai looked deeply at the troubled face of the girl, and an imperceptible smile flashed in his eyes. "Take it, I'll send some food stamps over in a few days," he said. "All right." Lu Zhizhi stood up. "Then let's stew fish today and help me make a fire." Aunt Li gave a large crucian carp, which is perfect for stewing fish soup. Lu Zhizhi marinated the crucian carp in cooking wine for 10 minutes, added a spoonful of oil, heated the oil, and then put the crucian carp down. Fry until both sides turn golden brown, and add an appropriate amount of water to stew. 10 minutes later, the water boiled and the lid of the pot was lifted. The aroma suddenly came over, and the fish soup in the pot was stewed until it was milky white. She cut a few pieces of tofu and threw them down. She added an appropriate amount of seasoning bottle and simmered for another 5 minutes. Lu Zhizhi stir-fried another dish of Chinese cabbage and braised eggplant in oil, and it was only then that he achieved great success. After the dishes were served on the table, the aroma immediately rushed in. "Well, I made a lot of dishes today." Lu Zhizhi clapped his hands with some pride. Gu Huaishen. Let's call Grandpa over and eat together," Lu Zhizhi suggested. Gu Huai was deeply stunned, somewhat surprised. Lu Zhizhi told Gu Huaishen about meeting Grandpa Gu today. "Hurry up, the dishes will cool down soon," urged Lu Zhizhi. Gu Huai nodded deeply and walked out of the house quickly. Chapter 10. Heaven in the previous second and hell in the next second. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 5 minutes later, Gu Huaishen returned with Grandpa Gu. Grandpa Gu muttered as he walked in, everyone said you guys should eat. I'm here to cause any trouble. Zhizhi stepped forward and took Grandpa Gu's hand, sweetly saying, what's the trouble here? I just want to have dinner with Grandpa. Grandpa, don't you want to try my craft? Grandpa Gu suddenly smiled and said, ha ha ha, I want to think about it. Upon arriving at the dining table and seeing the food in front of him, Grandpa Gu was taken aback and said, did you make it all, Zhizhi? Zhizhi nodded. It's really amazing. Sigh, I know why it's so excellent, even the dishes are so delicious. Zhizhi couldn't help but chuckle and say, Grandpa, you didn't even eat. It looks delicious, haha. Gu Huai looked deeply at this scene, his cold eyebrows and eyes stretching out, as if melting winter snow. After the three of them sat down, Zhizhi served them a bowl of fish soup and urged them, try it quickly. Grandpa Gu took a sip upon hearing this, and the fish soup was exceptionally delicious. After swallowing it, there was still a fresh taste in his mouth, which made him unable to resist the lingering aftertaste. Great! Grandpa Gu widened his eyes with undisguised admiration, I didn't expect your craftsmanship to be so good. Zhizhi immediately smiled and said, then Grandpa should eat more. Huaishen is truly fortunate enough to marry you. Huaishen, you must treat Zhizhi well. If such a good granddaughter wants to make me run away, I will not be polite to you. Grandpa Gu raised his eyebrows and looked at Gu Huaishen seriously with a tense mouth. Gu Huaishen nodded helplessly, but the smile in his eyes couldn't be concealed. Zhizhi, if Huaishen dares to bully you in the future, just tell me and I'll take care of him. Zhizhi pursed his lips and smiled a little embarrassed, and suddenly remembered the scene of Gu Huaishen helping him apply medicine in the morning. He treated me quite well. That's good, Grandpa Gu smiled and curved his eyes. The people in the village are still spreading rumors that their relationship with his grandson is not compatible. Humph, they clearly have a very good relationship. Those people should really come and take a look. Zhizhi's mouth is very sweet, and during a meal, it makes Grandpa Gu unable to close his mouth. It wasn't until late at night that Grandpa stood up reluctantly to bid farewell. Zhizhi wanted to see Grandpa Gu off, but was stopped by Gu Huaishen. You've had a hard time cooking today. Take a good rest and I'll see you off, Grandpa. Zhizhi had no choice but to give up and quickly took a shower before turning into the space before Gu Huaishen returned. Zhizhi squatted down to examine the herbs on the ground, but her attention was suddenly drawn to the soil. She grabbed a handful of soil with her hand and carefully observed it. The soil inside the space is different from the soil outside. The soil here seems to be wetter and darker, with a faint golden glow. Zhizhi stood up and looked around, only to see all the herbs growing together, as well as a large open soil area and a small pool of water not far away. She lowered her head and began to think. Can you try growing some vegetables and fruits here? If this idea can succeed, that will leave a considerable amount of expenses, and she can still take it out to buy, so she should also be able to earn this money. After making the decision, Zhizhi silently said, go out, and left the space. About 10 minutes later, Gu Huaishen also returned home. He tapped twice with his hand on the door where Zhizhi was located. Jichao's Gu Huaishen smiled deeply and said, is there anything wrong? Thank you for cooking for Grandpa today and being willing to chat with him, Gu Huaishen said softly. How are you going to repay me? Zhizhi blinked and asked with a smile. Gu Huaishen lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then solemnly said, you can ask anything you want. Can you help me buy some vegetable seeds and fruit seeds? Gu Huaishen had some doubts and didn't know why Zhizhi suddenly wanted to plant vegetables, but he still reminded, the soil here is not suitable for growing fruits, and only cabbage and potatoes can be grown as vegetables. I plan to give it a try, isn't there a vacant lot behind the yard anyway? Gu Huai nodded deeply and said nothing more. He walked towards a cabinet and took out a small box from inside, handing it to Zhizhi. Lu Zhizhi looked at the small black box in his hand in confusion and said, "For me." Seeing Gu Huai nodded deeply, Lu Zhizhi opened the box. Inside the box were neatly placed bills of all sizes and a passbook, and Lu Zhizhi took a deep breath. A line of words came to mind. He wouldn't want to take care of her, would he? Gu Huaishen, you have been playing with enough foreign-style poo, what is she thinking? Lu Zhizhi shook off the distractions in his mind and asked, why did you give me money? Gu Huai looked deeply at Lu Zhizhi's unpredictable little face and knew that she must be thinking crooked. He explained, this is my salary for these years, and I will use it for my family expenses in the future. You can buy anything you want. I will be back in the army in a few days. Gu Huai hesitated for a moment, but continued, I will submit my divorce application to the higher authorities as soon as possible. As soon as these words were spoken, Lu Zhizhi was still immersed in the joy of his salary being kept by me for a second, and the next second he instantly fell to hell. He still wants to divorce him. Sure enough, we couldn't escape the original direction of the plot. Although expected, for some reason, she still felt a little disappointed in her heart. Oh. Lu Zhizhi lowered his head and responded with a muffled expression, his face very gloomy. Lu Zhizhi was a bit angry and said quickly, then you should do it as soon as possible. As soon as she said this, she felt regretful and wanted to slap her mouth. But the words can no longer be taken back. Gu Huaishen's face became increasingly gloomy, and smoke enveloped his deep, high pool-like eyes. I got it, he said, I'll leave first and rest early. After Gu Huaishen finished speaking, he quickly walked back to the next room. Under the dim light, his eyes were slightly dim, and his eyes were tinged with self-deprecation. Since last night's conversation, Lu Zhizhi has been feeling down for a long time, and finally he has figured it out. Divorce means divorce. Love will only become a stumbling block on her path to success. A successful woman doesn't need love. After she became wealthy and reached the pinnacle of her life, she held a little milk dog on her left and a little wolf dog on her right. By then, she might have forgotten who Gu Huaishen was. Lu Zhizhi became increasingly excited and couldn't sleep anymore. She got up and went into the space to pick some herbs. After half an hour of tinkering, a small jar of herbs for treating external injuries was finally made. After exhausting her energy, she finally fell into a deep sleep. The next day, Lu Zhizhi woke up with a cold heart in his arms. After brushing her teeth and washing her face coldly, she walked out of the room to take a look, and at that moment, her cold heart cracked open. Living under the same roof as Gu Huaishen every day, his handsome face sways in front of her all day, making her really upset. Lu Zhizhi casually took 2 bites of cake and went out without making any eye contact with Gu Huaishen throughout the journey. Just as I walked not far, I was grabbed by both hands. Zhizhi, I have something to do with you. Lu Zhizhi turned around and saw Jiang Jing smiling obsequiously at him. Lu Zhizhi raised an eyebrow, thinking that after the last time, Jiang Jing would be able to understand and stop pestering her. However, she underestimated the thickness of this person's face. What's going on? Jiang Jing mysteriously wanted to come forward and grab Lu Zhizhi, saying, let's go to a place with fewer people. Lu Zhizhi dodged sensitively and said, no need, just say it here. Jiang Jing's face was a bit anxious, and he hurriedly said, I really have something to say. It's inconvenient to have so many people here. Lu Zhizhi placed her hands around her chest and looked coldly at Jiang Jing. She also wanted to see what the other person was up to, so she followed Jiang Jing to a corner. The figure of the two leaving one after another happened to be seen by Aunt Wu, who was carrying a hoe behind her. Her wrinkled face instantly regained vitality. Isn't this Lu Zhizhi and Jiang Jing? In broad daylight, are these two people planning to have an affair? It's absolutely amazing. Aunt Wu licked her tongue and cursed in the direction of their departure, dog men and women, you're really shameless. Suddenly glancing at the woman in the distance, she struggled to squint her eyes to see clearly. Until the figure walked in, Aunt Wu's eyes lit up and she ran forward 3 steps into Zhang's daughter. Zhang Xiaoqi glanced at Aunt Wu and said, "Why?" Aunt Wu mysteriously leaned forward with a tone full of excitement and said, "Zhang's daughter, it's amazing. I just saw your partner walking with Zhizhi." "What?" Zhang Xiaoqi was suddenly surprised. "Are you sure you're not mistaken?" "Oh, how could I get it wrong? I haven't had that much dizziness yet. In broad daylight, they are a man and a woman, and I don't know what to do." Aunt Wu covered her mouth and smiled, adding fuel to her jealousy. Zhang Xiaoqi's face turned pale as she gritted her teeth and said, "Where have they gone? Take me over. It must be that lowly woman from Zhizhi pestering Jiang Jing again. This time, she must make Zhizhi look good." On the other side, Zhizhi spoke coldly, "If you have anything to say, I'm very busy." Jiang Jing gave a self-proclaimed charming smile and said, "Zhizhi, don't be jealous. I know you're blaming me for marrying Zhang Xiaoqi." Zhizhi's eyes are full of question marks. Jiang Jing said to himself, "There's nothing I can do about it. Her father is a cadre in the village, and after we get married, we can have a good job without having to work in the fields every day. But don't worry, I don't have any feelings for her. When the time comes, I'll divorce her, and I can take you to live in a big city." What kind of phoenix man is speaking? If it were the original owner, I would probably have been moved and confused by now. But after listening to these words, she just wanted to give it a punch. Zhizhi sneered and said, "You're really great. I know it's inevitable for you to marry Gu Huaishen. Don't worry, I will compensate you well in the future." Jiang Jing spoke confidently. He believed in his heart that Zhizhi had no feelings for Gu Huaishen, and even detested him to the extreme. The behavior of Zhizhi before should have been done to anger him.